Well, this time last week, Treasurer Wayne Swan had just finished delivering his budget speech, and already the big miners operating in Australia were mobilising against the so-called super profits tax. With jobs and billions of dollars in profits, the stakes are sky high. And they've been sent there in large part due to China's insatiable appetite for Australia's natural resources. Now, we've been repeatedly told that Australia escaped a real bruising during the global financial crisis due to the fact that we tapped directly and deeply into China's economic miracle. But some experts are now asking, is China due for a reckoning? Has the country built itself up into one giant, highly dangerous domino? Here's China correspondent Stephen McDonald.
China's striking capital, at the heart of a blistering economy, is a city full of possibilities. Beijing's bright lights drag people here as if they were insects, hoping to get a piece of what this booming city has to offer. Boys who make up the band Rustic, this is a place of rock and roll dreams. They drifted into Beijing from nearby Hebei province 2 years ago, and they have no doubt that tomorrow belongs to them.
I love beer! I love beer! I love beer! I love beer!
我跟怕不怕没关系，你有能力的话你会有工作的，没有能力，操，这不可能就是是不是？现在没有免费的晚餐。
And their songs cover all the big issues.
Girls, money, beer, life.
It's true that you'll find youthful exuberance anywhere in the world. But in China, when you paddle onto the big wave of life, you're doing so in a country that just doesn't seem to have a reverse gear. And these children of the children of the children of the revolution seem justifiably optimistic that this country will continue to grow economically and offer its people all the rewards that such growth brings.
经济我不太了解，因为我自己也属于底层人民，我也不懂。但是我就觉着，就给我的感觉来讲吧，就是所有都在进步吧，都在不断的进步，肯定会越来越好。
But there are those who are not so sure that China's economy can keep up this pace.
Many people believe that we've reached a point in China where we're producing stuff or investing in infrastructure that is not economically viable. That in the future, we're not going to be able to use this stuff and we're still going to have to pay for it.
Into the world of unbridled optimism about China's economic future steps Professor Michael Pettis. While others see nothing but improvement here, wherever he goes he sees imbalance. This former Wall Street banker is now a leading authority on the Chinese economy. And while he's not yet predicting a collapse, he definitely sees trouble ahead for China.
In the US, they consume too much. They consume far more than they produce. China has the opposite problem. In China, they produce far more than they consume. They consume the lowest share of GDP ever recorded. It's not at all practical, it's not logical, and it's not sustainable for such a large economy like China to depend so heavily on foreign demand for its goods. There's a big debate about how effective that is in a country with a currency regime.
Michael Pettis has given up the big bucks to teach economics at China's most prestigious academic establishment, Peking University.
I will pay you 1,000 kwai next Tuesday.
And he has a cautionary message for these leaders of the
A
future.
little bit less than 1,000 kwai.
China needs to buy more of its own stuff and stop trying to sell as much to countries like the United States, or it'll face a serious debt crisis.
The reputation does get around, people know. You don't have an infinite capacity for borrowing. Very little risk. If the US could borrow infinitely, then we could keep this game going on forever. But it can't. So at some point, it has to stop. And that stopping means rebalancing. So one way or the other, China will rebalance. It's not an option.
Professor Pettis is right, then this is what you might call overcapacity. The massive Waigaoqiao shipyard is one of the largest in China. This state-owned company produces a new ship every 2 weeks. To build these giants of the sea, it relies on a workforce of 20,000 people. And employment stability is the government's #1 priority. In pushing China through the world economic crisis, it was companies like this which dragged Australia along with them, and in more ways than one. Here, ships like this one are being built to take Australian iron ore to China. In China, the iron ore is turned into steel, and steel is brought here to build the ships which return to Australia and pick up the iron ore. And around goes the Australia-China economic relationship. But how long can Australia rely on this same level of demand for raw materials like iron ore?
We do have a problem with too many ships, too much steel. At some point, you have to sell this stuff. And if you have difficulty selling the stuff, then at some point in the future, you're going to write it down and take losses. You're going to have a negative impact.
The world economic crisis led to a collapse in international demand for Chinese goods. So China launched a massive $800 billion stimulus package. It brought forward building projects and ordered state-controlled banks to increase loans.
由于船没有嘛，所以现金比较紧张。那么可以呢，就是国家支持以后呢，可以贷到点贷款以后。